seekers and quilt people. How are you? Things here have been a little bit challenging over the last 24 hours as yesterday. Our Great Dane just up and died out of nowhere, so that was not expected. She's only 4.5, right? So you don't expect a healthy young dog like that to just die, but apparently she had some kind of heart issue and she was having foam and blood coming out of her mouth as she was dying in my husband's arms. So, you know, that's just life, isn't it? So it was important to me to come in here and ground myself, right? Because before I do any of these videos, I have to check in with myself to see what it is that I have to give in this day, right? What is it I'm vibing with? What is it that I'm bringing into the world? What is it that I'm sending downstream? Right? To be mindful of who we are and our energy footprint, right? In that way, are we bringing healing or destruction into the world? So for this topic, I wanted to talk about naming the enemy, right? It's something we started talking about last time when we were talking about being unwounded and unwoundable, right? We're talking about being unwounded from the past, those things that have gone. Even Ava's death yesterday. You know, that has happened in the past. It is not happening currently. And that right there is the thing we're going to be talking about today, naming the enemy. Because it becomes really clear, and it's super helpful, I find, to name it. Because we're all running around fighting things, but what are we fighting? Are we being proactive in our, desire to help move things forward, or are we participating in just more of the same, right? Because we all know what more of the same looks like because we've all dealt with it for many years. Now, that's not to say that we haven't evolved, because clearly we have, as I've given the example before. Like, I can't even go back and watch an older episode of Golden Girls and not be reminded of how far we've come as a society on many things, right? In terms of like slut shaming, fat shaming, homophobia, right? Like all of these things were just how the world operated many decades ago, right? And having lived to this age, now being 52, I'm gonna be 53 this week, oh my God. John's gonna be 59. As you know, we have the same birthday, May 12th. So it's always a big day for us, and we're trying to gear up for that. But it's really helpful in staying clear, right, of who is the quote-unquote enemy. Because per the understanding of basic shamanism, right, and being introduced to your angel of neutrality, who is there to keep you neutral in all situations, we don't get to have an opinion on things, right? Because in the principles of core shamanism, they see that as too costly to one's soul. If a shaman is the doctor of the soul, then first and foremost, they have to be mindful and care for that which is soul. So it begs the question, what is the soul? Right? Because it's not something you can open up the body and find. It is just something that lives as energy. And even just witnessing Ava die yesterday, watching her soul, that which animates, her body, watching it depart, and then being left with, what are you left with? A corpse, a body. There's no life there. It's the soul that animates it. And it's the soul that connects us to and reminds us of who we are. Which at the basic core is not this, meat package that we're walking around in, right? Well, that's part of it. We've been gifted that. There is still part of it which resonates with the intelligence of the universe, and that's what we're trying to connect to and find. So if I know from the past I'm unwounded, right, even by Ava's death, I can find blessings in that 1,000,000 times over. Now that doesn't mean it's not hard, right? Because there's two types of pain, as I talk about in many of my books, right? There's the pain of the heart, and then there's the pain of the ego. What our family has been dealing with is the pain of the heart, right? That wound that you're just going to grieve missing somebody because, they meant a lot to you in your life, And that pain is if there's a correct way to have pain. Oh, good. Healthy pain. That's the pain we can allow. But this other pain, the ego pain, the pain that is informed to us from up here, that's the part that we gotta identify and name. Because what is it? It's the enemy. That right there. That right there is the enemy, right? And so when we get clear on the fact that it's illusion, that's the enemy, not what is, right? It's the illusion of pain that is the enemy. And it's the illusion of lack and fear and pain that everybody on this planet is practically riddled with. That's the enemy. So when you see somebody participating in low, dense vibrations, right, who's acting some kind of way that's just unloving or crazy, and in here I will always find those two words as interchangeable, right? Being unloving is making crazy, okay? So if we can identify who is the enemy, right? And it's not who is the enemy, it's what is the enemy. The enemy is the illusion. So if you see somebody acting some kind of way that's grossly inappropriate or just, unloving, the human who's participating in that is not the enemy. The enemy is the illusion that they're caught up in, right? In seeing thought constructs as real. Let me break it down this way. Anytime you are engaged in fear or anything that feels uncomfortable or negative, with the exception of heart pain, which we just talked about, but anytime you are interacting with or experiencing fear when there is nothing actually fearful in your environment, that's crazy making. And that you're doing to yourself. You're injecting yourself and using your imagination for uncomfortable purposes. And you're doing that to yourself. So the gig is to liberate ourselves from the illusion of fear. And what does the illusion of fear look like? It's anytime you're sitting in a room feeling fearful, but not actually having anything in your environment that should be creating fear. Now, mind you, if there's a lion, you get to be filled with fear. But if I'm just in my studio, sewing, and having a nice day, and yet I keep being, filled with fear, or thoughts of fear, right? And then you start thinking about, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, or, I have, that person thinks this thing and that thing and the other, and you're injecting yourself with all these things that are just, illusion of thought that you are hurting yourself with. That's the enemy. That's who we are to be standing against, not others. Others are the ones we are supposed to be liberating out of that illusion of fear, right? So does that make sense? If you're interacting with your local environment, what's actually surrounding you, it will be impossible to be in fear unless there's something, fearful in your environment, right? So that's the gauge. Anytime you're feeling bad or fearful or off, you're engaging in the crazy of the mind, the free will of the mind, the illusion, right? Just run amok, causing you pain. How we distance ourselves from injecting ourselves with fear and discomfort is get present, fully present. And it takes a little practice, but the good news is it's like aversion therapy, right? Like conversion therapy, like the faith-based communities used to do to the queer people in order to try and cure us, right? How well did that work? Still here, still gays, picnic basket. Right? It's identifying mental constructs and the illusion that those things are real. That's the enemy. Right there. That crazy making, which goes on up here unchecked, just going through blah, 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 blah. All the chatter, all the talk, all the fear, all the blah, 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 blah. Nope. Get local. Get into your environment. Get out of your head and into your actual environment, that which is surrounding you. And know that every time you're in pain or in fear, that's you. That's all you. And it's an option. All you have to do is get present. And those fears just drift away because they're illusion. They're not actually happening in your environment. Do not interact with the mind. Interact with your environment, with where you are, with the room that you're in, right? And it's only there in the present moment where there is no fear or, discomfort emotionally, unless of course there's something in your local environment that's making you feel that way. And again, that's allowed. But making crazy, being in the mind, letting the mind run amok unchecked is where the problem is. That's the source of all your pain. And again, the solution is to just get hyper-local. I'm here right now in my sewing studio. There's nothing to be afraid of. There is no enemy, right? And so when there is actually something in my local environment that's causing me fear or pain, such as others acting in an unloving way, right? I don't get to attack them. What we talked about last time is that people really only have a chance to evolve in their process, and we don't get to have an opinion on where they are on their road to their personal peak, right? So not having an opinion on others and not seeing others as the enemy, but rather seeing their mind being caught up in illusion, right? And being attached to thought constructs as real, right? Because none of this that man has created is really real. Not the money, not the jobs, not the laws, not the politics. Like none of that is real. And you gotta get to a place where you understand that everything that man can create within their mind is free will. There's no rules there. There's none. It's free will. People can do whatever they want, as witnessed on planet Earth, and they get to do it their way, right? So it's staying seated in self, right? Being true to yourself and yourself only, and what others are doing and interacting with and having an experience with is their process. And again, they're in good care. You don't have to get, involved in that, right? You can barely change yourself. You can't change others, right? So if we know that illusion of thought is the enemy, then how do we go about helping people evolve out of that illusion of fear-based thought forms? Because it's all based on nothing. It's all based on, he said this and she said that and I know this and blah, 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 and this, that, and the other, right? Which is causing you a lot of stress and angst and anxiety because you're interacting with your head and the things that can go on up there. And the only way you can get out of it is to get local to where you are. It's being present in the moment where we find that attachment to our heart-based consciousness and by extension to creation or God or whatever you want to call it, right? Because when you're there, the illusion of fear disappears. I read a really interesting article once. It was one of my favorites. It was so fascinating to me because it talked about skydiving and quilting as being basically two expressions of the same thing. And you're like, skydiving and quilting are kind of the same? How? Why? And they were like, people do things that are, either extreme sports or, something like crafts and things like this to do one thing. And both of those people who are interacting in those two activities are doing the same thing. They're getting hyper present to the moment. That's why I enjoy driving so much, right? Because you can't drive. Well, you can kind of, right, and be checked out. We've all experienced that. You're like, oh, I'm home already. How'd I get here? But meanwhile, you're lost in thought, right? But I find driving for me connects me to the moment, 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 right? And that's what skydiving and quilting do for people. In skydiving or driving or whatever, you have to get hyper-focused to what you're doing in the moment. You can't be in the past or in the future. You gotta be present. It's the same with quilting. You can't make all those little stitches go one after another, right? And there's something about the meditation of something that's repetitive, right, that you get into and you get hyper-local. And for me, it becomes like a walking meditation almost, right? Because you're so present to the moment as you're doing this activity, right, of sewing or whatever it is that you're doing. But both of those activities serve the same purpose. And that's why people call it their therapy. Because it's the one place in their life where they can stop thinking and start being. Start being present to the moment, which is where we find God, right? We can't find God in the future or in the past, only in the present moment. And once you know that and start to really practice it every single day, and as soon as you're getting into pain, you know, oh, ding, 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 I'm off. I'm in pain. I'm experiencing pain in my head because I'm not what? I'm not present to my life. I'm not present to the moment, which is the place where we connect with a higher calling, right? And so if we know that, like, it just becomes a lot easier. And again, practice. You can do it. It's taken me a couple of months. Once I kind of realized, oh, illusion is the enemy. And so if I'm not participating in illusion, I'm not participating in the ego, which is where all the pain is, right? And so, again, anytime you feel that pain, anytime you feel off, anytime you feel frustrated, whatever, get local to where you are and interact there only from a place of the heart, right? And just see what happens. Keep practicing, because I promise you, it is your personal way out of pain. And then once you get there and you can stay present to your life as it's going on 24/7, because I mean, it's just the most liberating thing to be in your, I mean, look at how wonderful my studio is. How can I possibly be in here and be crazy making and in a bad mood and fearful when this is my environment? Does that make sense? Practice. And once you got it, you got to do just one thing. Give it away, right? Because we don't truly have something within ourselves until we can teach it. That's part of what I'm doing here. Oh, do I have this? Can I tell somebody else what it is? Right? So gain it for yourself, then give it away so that you can continue to explore it and understand it. As you're teaching it to others, people will ask you questions that you then have to kind of master, or at least have some understanding of, in order to continue to give away that freedom, which is understanding that illusion of thought. Illusion of thought is the enemy. And once we as humans evolve past that and learn how to be more generous with spirit, then that'll be the game changer. I kind of think that, like, I kind of look at that as like what Christian people call the rapture, right? I don't think that Christians are going to sprout wings and fly away. Although if you want to, go. Bye, good luck. Right? I don't think that, people on planet Earth are going to be disappearing into the sky. What I do think, though, and especially as evidenced by book 4 in my Language and Light series, is that it'll be the reverse, right? There will be beings, probably, that we are incapable of visually seeing with our limited meat package that we're working with, right? And it is one of the principles of shamanism, right? Is how to see, how to gain vision without your eyes. because it's on that plane where you can see and experience things in a deeper place. Have you ever walked into a room and gone, oh, wow, this feels really off. There is something that has happened in this room, or something has gone down, and this space feels either creepy or weird or not right. That sense right there, that's shamanism. And it's building on that innate ability that all humans have. Now, mind you, some are truly much more gifted than others to, dive into those senses of things that you can't see but somehow know, right? That's shamanism, right there. And you've already interacted with it, experienced it, right? Because everybody's had the experience of just knowing in your gut that something ain't right. That's shamanism. That is understanding what is the soul. And when the soul is off or speaking or informing you, ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. That's Creator coming through, right? So, if we know ultimately our, gifts, that however they are, whatever spiritual gifts that you have, because that's another thing I love about shamanism, is they kind of teach you the whole buffet of things that you can study, and whether that's psychopomp and working with the dead, or helping people cross over, or whether it's in drums and rattles, or the ancient singing and songs, or journeying, or, for me, channeling, that's another big one. Whatever those gifts are, right? And it's up to you to discover it. But it's also up to you to get yourself into the right place to find people who have gone before who can illuminate that information for you. That's up to you. So if we know that we are to use our gifts to be a light in the world, every faith community has that basic sense, right? That we are to here on planet Earth to be a light in the world. Well, it's not until we understand the definition of what light means. Oh, I'm supposed to be a light in the world. Perfect. Get me a lampshade. Because being a light in the world means one thing. Being the true expression of Creator on Earth. That's letting God's light shine through you into the world to be an example of what's possible, right? And so we can only be that light in the world when we're properly resonating and aligned with and wired to that which is of God and not which is of man. If you are wired to and tethered to and finding information in the world of man, which will always be involved with lack because it comes from the ego, which just inherently sees good and bad and right and wrong, right? That's its job, is to differentiate, right? And understand. But when you're getting all of your life information from good and bad and right and wrong, right? There will always be division. There will always be separateness, right? There will always be duality. Remember how much we talked about duality? There will never be singularity or unity, ever, in the ego, because it can't function from that place. It's not seeking for oneness, it's seeking for differentiation to understand itself better. That's not inherently bad, but it does, run amok without being put into check. Be a light in the world. Show what's possible through understanding. That's being a light in the world. People are only looking for one thing: compassion for their pain. That's it. So when you bring that sense of understanding and non-judgment, which is love, right? When you bring that sense of non-judgment to others to help elevate them out of their personal hell, which is their association with illusion, right? And And we all stop doing that. We all stop crazy making, and we all stop being loveless, and we all stop operating from a place of the ego of good and bad and right and wrong, and get into the unity that we are one. We are one planet, one people, just here for a tiny little second. Right? So be a light in the world. Deliver understanding to those who are around you. Help them evolve out of their personal hell. Get them to understand that they are injecting fear within themselves, and that is optional. Right? Be in the present moment. Abandon ego, adopt heart. Be in the present moment. Detach from the past completely. Even if someone just said it 2 seconds ago, detach from it. It no longer is in the present moment, right? Because in the present moment, while always providing an environment of love and understanding towards others, understanding that you're just there to help people elevate in their consciousness out of fear and towards love. It's going to be a game changer once we kind of get to that point, right? When we can really understand like how the mind operates and what just a field of bombs, and like it's not a good place to hang out, and there's not a good way to participate in crazy without being crazy. So stop it, right? Just get present and look forward to your life. Look forward to what you have to give today. Look forward to what experience you might have today. It's impossible to be in a bad mood or feel downtrodden when you are in the present moment, interacting with your local environment and looking forward to the solution, looking forward to what is yet to come. Right? Because you're creating that when you get into that headspace, right? And so, like, that to me is the game changer. All right? So that's where we are today. Thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, it's been a crazy 24 hours. It's just, but we're so grateful for what Ava, our Great Dane, brought into our lives, how she was able to raise our little bloodhound, Lewis, and the amazing relationship that they had. And you know what? We can bless that and look forward to us getting another dog, another buddy for Lewis, right? There's so much to look forward to, even when things are difficult. So stay there. Do that for yourself. Be kind to you. Be that light in the world, which is understanding. All right, I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.